Chapter 1. Under the Hanging Quilts. The room is already dim when you come to it, softened by the kind of evening that arrives quietly on a rainy night. Beyond the window, the glass is patterned with fine, moving lines, and the rain taps there with a patient, even rhythm. It is not a hurried rain. It does not ask for anything. It simply keeps falling, steady and small, while the bedroom gathers itself into shadow and warmth. In the middle of the room, the fort waits. It is made in the old, familiar way, with chairs drawn close and quilts draped from one back to another, each blanket hanging in a generous fold. A corner of one quilt slopes lower than the rest, making a little doorway. Another spreads wide across the top, creating a ceiling that dips down just enough to make the space beneath feel secret and separate. Pillows line the edges inside, stacked into soft walls that do not quite reach the fabric roof. A flashlight turned on its side sends a gentle glow into the blankets, so that the whole fort seems lit from within. Not brightly, but warmly, like a lantern hidden under cloth. You pause for a moment outside it. The room around you is ordinary in the best possible way. A bed nearby, a dresser in shadow, the faint shape of clothes folded over a chair, the window with the rain at it. Somewhere farther off in the house, a door has already been closed for the night. A floorboard has settled. The distant hum of something useful and uninteresting drifts through the walls. Everything is in its place. Everything is winding down. And here, in the middle of that quiet room, is this smaller quiet. When you bend and lift the hanging quilt, the air changes at once. It is warmer under there, touched by fabric and held close. The light turns softer still. The sounds from the room do not disappear, but they become gentler as they pass through layers of cotton and stitching. Rain at the window is no longer a sound in a whole house. It is a sound just outside your little shelter, filtered and tender. The house itself grows farther away, as if it has stepped back to give this small space to you. Inside, the fort is lower than the room, lower than standing thoughts, lower than the day. You have to duck a little. You feel the nearness of the quilt ceiling above you, the way it hangs in a slight curve between chairbacks. Here and there, the fabric shows its own small landscape. Seams running in quiet lines, squares of faded color, stitched patterns that catch the low light. A flower shape, a stripe, a patch worn softer than the rest. Nothing grand, only the plain beauty of things used often and kept gently. The floor beneath is padded with blankets and a comforter folded over itself. When you settle down onto it, the softness receives your weight without a sound. A pillow gives under your hand. Another waits at your side, making a low boundary, not to keep you in, but to let you feel where the edges are. It is a comfort, this smallness, not cramped, only contained. The kind of space where there is no need to look far, no need to think ahead. The light inside the fort glows amber through the quilts. It turns the pale fabric golden and the darker fabric deep and velvety. Along one side, where the blanket does not quite meet the floor, there is a narrow seam of ordinary room darkness, and through it you can see only a little: the leg of a chair, the edge of the rug, a slice of shadow beyond. It is enough to know the room is still there, enough to know the fort is not separate from the world, only tucked within it. Rain continues at the window. You can hear the small variations in it now: a soft tapping, a brief hush, then a slightly fuller patter as the drops gather and slide. The sound does not press in. It rests around the room and over the house, and the fort receives only the gentlest part of it. The quilts seem to understand what to do with noise. They take the harder edges away. They make everything rounder, more distant, easier to listen to. Even your own movements seem quieter here. A hand smoothing the blanket, a sleeve whispering over a pillow. The tiny shift of fabric as you settle one shoulder and then the other. These are small sounds, close sounds, sounds that belong to this sheltered place. They do not disturb the quiet. They become part of it. There is something reassuring about the way the fort is made from ordinary things. Chairs doing the work of walls, quilts becoming a roof, pillows making corners where there were none before. Nothing complicated, nothing exact. One side leans a little more than the other. A quilt edge droops in a friendly way. The ceiling is not straight. The doorway is only a lifted flap of fabric. And because of that, the whole little refuge feels kinder, as though it has been assembled not to impress anyone, but simply to hold warmth and hush for a while. You can rest your hand on the blanket beside you and feel its texture clearly. Cool in one stitched seam, warmer in the puffed spaces between, slightly heavier where two folds overlap, familiar in the way only fabric can be, carrying the memory of being washed, dried, folded, spread out, tucked in. The fort smells faintly of clean cotton and the warm stillness of a room at night. Beneath that is the soft, almost invisible scent of rain in the air beyond the window. Outside this little shelter, the bedroom remains calm and dim. Beyond the bedroom, the hallway quiets. Beyond the hallway, the house settles into itself. But inside the fort, the world has already become smaller and gentler. The ceiling hangs low overhead. The pillows hold their soft line. The lamp glows through the quilts. Rain keeps tapping at the glass, as if it has all the time it could ever need. And here, beneath the hanging quilts, there is a simple kind of safety. Not the safety of locks and alarms or anything sharp-edged and watchful. Just the safety of being enclosed by softness. of being surrounded by familiar things arranged with care, of hearing the weather from a dry place, of feeling the room become quieter as soon as the blanket falls back into place behind you. So you remain here for a while, in this small, handmade room inside the room, letting your eyes adjust to the low, golden light, letting the rain speak softly through the window, letting the quilts hang around you like calm, patient walls. The fort does not ask you to do anything yet. It only holds its shape around you. It only glows. It only listens with you to the rain. Chapter 2. Making the small space just right. Inside this small hush, there is no need to hurry into stillness. The fort has already gathered itself around you. Now it can be made just a little softer, a little steadier, until the space feels not only hidden, but ready. One blanket edge has slipped into a loose fold near your shoulder. You reach for it, almost without thinking, and the motion is small enough to keep the quiet whole. Your fingers find the hem, warm from the lamp's gentle glow, and faintly cool where the air has touched it. The fabric has that familiar weight of an old quilt, not heavy enough to press, only enough to reassure. You smooth it down slowly, following the stitched line from one square to the next, feeling where the thread rises and dips. The blanket settles under your hand with a soft whisper, and the wall of the fort looks a little neater, the opening a little more tucked in. A pillow near your elbow leans at an awkward angle, making one side of the fort feel less even than the other. So you nudge it inward, just an inch or two. The pillow gives easily, then resists a little, then finds its place. Its cotton case makes a quiet brushing sound against the blanket beneath it. Another pillow on the other side seems to notice and follows with a slight shift of its own, until the two make a low, soft boundary. Not a barrier exactly, only a gentle reminder of where this little room begins and ends. You pause there, listening. Rain at the window. The low hum somewhere beyond the bedroom. The close quiet of fabric all around. Then another small adjustment. The folded comforter beneath you has bunched slightly under one hip, creating a shallow ridge. It is the sort of thing you might ignore in the daytime. But here, in this careful, warm dimness, even a small unevenness asks to be tended to. So you press your palm down and slide it outward, flattening the fold. The padding beneath you spreads more evenly. The floor of the fort becomes softer, simpler, more level. Your body notices at once. There is relief in such a tiny correction, as if the nest has remembered how to hold you. The flashlight is glowing faithfully from its corner, but the light is a little too direct on one patch of quilt. It makes one square brighter than the rest. A pale gold spot where the pattern disappears into shine. You lean over and turn it just slightly. Not much. Only enough that the brightness diffuses, and the quilted wall begins to glow instead of glare. At once, the whole fort changes. The light is softer now, spread through fabric and folds. Seams appear again. Faded shapes return. A stripe, a flower, a square of blue gone gray with years of washing. The ceiling of the fort looks less like a blanket hanging overhead and more like a low evening sky made of cloth. The corners deepen into amber shadow. The pillows become rounded hills at the edges of your little room. Everything remains visible, but nothing asks to be looked at too sharply. That is better. You settle back and notice how many things are already within reach. A blanket under your hand, a pillow to lean against, another one by your knees, the warm patch where the light rests, the cooler patch near the entrance where a little room air slips in and out. Even the sounds are placed gently around you, each in its own distance. Rain beyond the window, house beyond the door, breath nearest of all. There is comfort in arranging a small space with care, not because anything is wrong, but because each tiny motion says the same quiet thing. You may stay here a while. You may make this comfortable. You may let the night be simple. So you make one more adjustment, then another, each one smaller than the last. The blanket near your feet is drawn a little closer, so no cool edge of air can find its way in. The pillow behind your back is fluffed once, then pressed into a shape that supports without pushing. A corner of quilt that droops too low is lifted and draped more evenly over the chair above. And now the ceiling arches with a little more grace. The opening of the fort narrows just enough to feel private, but not closed. There is still room for the rain to be heard. Your hand travels over the bedding in absent, soothing circles, smoothing wrinkles that do not matter, and yet feel pleasant to smooth. The fabric answers every touch with a faint, dry rustle. The motions grow slower, less like fixing, more like settling, less like arranging a place, more like greeting it. The fort receives each gesture quietly. Nothing startles. Nothing slips out of place all at once. Chairs remain steady under their draped quilts. Pillows keep their rounded edges. The comforter beneath you holds its thickness. The light continues to glow from below, transforming all the ordinary materials of the room into something tender and enclosed. Outside the fort, the bedroom is still there, dim and familiar. The bed, the dresser, the chair lending its back to the quilted roof. But from in here, those things matter less than they did a little while ago. The small world inside the blankets has become complete enough on its own. Not large, not elaborate, just sufficient. Just right in the way a cup of warm tea is right, or a hand tucked under a cool pillow, or a rain sound heard from indoors. You shift your shoulders once, then let them rest. You stretch your legs the smallest amount, testing the softness around them. The blankets answer by holding their shape. The pillow wall does not collapse. The low ceiling does not sag too close. Everything stays gently where you have placed it. And because it does, your body can begin to trust the space more fully. There is a special kind of calm in that trust. You do not need much. Only this little room of cloth and dim light. Only the rain continuing without effort. Only the sense that if one corner needs smoothing, you can smooth it. And if one pillow needs shifting, you can shift it. And then let your hands grow quiet again. For now, they do. Your fingertips rest on the blanket beside you, touching one stitched seam. The thread feels slightly raised, a narrow path under your skin. You follow it for an inch, then stop. The lamp glows through the quilt wall in a warm, even hush. The pillows stand around you like soft companions. The comforter beneath you keeps its gentle loft. And the fort, carefully tended now, feels less like something built and more like something that has settled into its true shape. A nest of quilts. A low room of light. A small place made comfortable enough to forget the need for anything else. You listen again, and the sounds seem to fit more neatly now that the space does. Rain at the window, softened by fabric. The faintest murmur from elsewhere in the house. The quiet touch of bedding when you breathe and shift. Nothing far away feels urgent. Nothing close by feels unfinished. Everything needed for the night is near. And so you remain here a little longer, inside the hanging quilts, where one blanket edge lies smooth. One pillow wall sits just right, and the light has softened into a steady, honey-colored glow that turns this small, hidden space into a place worth lingering in. While beyond it, the rain keeps falling, patient and even, against the dark window. Chapter 3. Rain along the window. Beyond the quilted wall, the rain keeps falling, patient and even, against the dark window. From inside the fort, you do not see the window directly now. It is somewhere past the hanging edge of fabric, beyond the chair leg and the side of the bed, out in the dimmer part of the room. But the rain finds its way in anyway. Not as wetness, not as cold, only as sound. It arrives softened by distance, sifted through cloth and air and the quiet of the bedroom, until it seems less like weather and more like a steady kind of company. At first, it is only a light tapping, small and separate, as if fingertips were touching the glass one by one. Then, as you keep listening, the separate taps gather into a pattern too gentle to count. They blur together. They become a thin, silvery hush along the window pane, a sound that spreads and settles, never asking for anything, never becoming sharp. It simply continues, patient as breathing. Inside the fort, everything remains warm and dry. The comforter beneath you holds a little of your own heat. The pillows at your side stay soft and still. The quilt overhead hangs in a low curve, its stitched weight making the small ceiling feel secure, as though the fabric itself has decided to keep watch. The glow from the lamp, turned low and sideways, rests in the folds of cloth and turns their shadows amber and brown. Here, the air is calm. Here, nothing drips or chills or blows. The rain belongs to the other side of the room, and still, it is close enough to hear. There is something soothing in that distance. You can listen to the rain without needing to meet it. You can let it move over the roof, down the window, through the gutters, while you remain here in the tucked-in center of this little shelter. The contrast is simple and complete. Outside the fort, the night is dark and damp, full of roofs and glass, and the quiet work of water finding its way downward. Inside the fort, the blankets hold their shape. The pillows keep their gentle wall. The light stays low and golden. Dryness has its own softness. Another cluster of drops passes over the window. A slightly fuller sound now, as if the rain has thickened for a moment. You can almost imagine the pane shining in the dark, traced with narrow threads of water. Some drops strike and break apart. Some gather with others and slide slowly down. Somewhere above or beyond, rain brushes the roof in a broader whisper, less distinct than the tapping at the glass, more like a soft hand moving over paper. Then there is the gutter, faint but present if you listen for it. Not a loud rush, only a quiet channeling away. Water finding an edge, following it, slipping along metal in a smooth, hidden line. It gives the night a shape. Window, roof, gutter, all of it just beyond the room, just beyond the fort, making a world that is active in the gentlest possible way. The rain does not disturb the stillness. It outlines it. You lie here and let the sounds arrange themselves. Closest is the hush inside the fort, your own nearness to the blankets, the tiny stillness of warmed fabric, the almost silence of a pillow settling under its own softness. Then, beyond that, the rain at the window, the roof, the gutter. Beyond even that, the larger dark outside, which you do not need to picture clearly. It is enough to know it is there, cool and wet and wide, while you remain in this small, lit pocket of calm. The fort changes the rain. If you were standing at the window, perhaps you would hear each drop more sharply. Perhaps the glass would feel cold beside your hand. But from here, under quilts and among pillows, the sound is rounded and gentle. Cloth takes the edges off it. The little enclosed space turns rain into rhythm. It becomes less a weather sound and more a lulling one, repeating without effort, varying without surprise. Sometimes the tapping grows finer, like grains of rice dropped lightly on the pane. Sometimes it deepens into a more blended patter, a soft applause far away. Sometimes there is a pause so slight it can barely be called a pause at all, just a thinning. And then the rain resumes its even thread. These small changes do not ask you to stay alert. They are the kind of changes that let the mind rest, because nothing important depends on noticing them. The bedroom around the fort seems to listen too. The bed frame, the dresser, the folded clothes on the chair, the closed door. All of it has gone quiet and still under the same rainy hush. The room feels dimly afloat in it. The fort feels even smaller because of that, and therefore safer. A sheltered pocket within a sheltered room, within a sheltered house. Rain on the window. Quilts overhead. Pillow walls at your side. Everything nested gently inside everything else. If you shift your attention back to the quilt above you, you can hear how soft the fort makes the world. The fabric does not block the rain entirely. It translates it. It lets the sound pass through, changed, warmed somehow, as though the blankets are filtering not just light, but weather too. Outside, water falls through the dark. Inside, it arrives as a muted song against the edges of the room. And because the rain continues, the night feels held together. There is comfort in a sound that does not need your help. The rain knows how to keep going on its own. It taps the pane, trails from the roof, slips through the gutter, gathers somewhere out in the dark where you do not have to follow. You can simply remain where you are, dry under the hanging quilts, while the weather moves gently around the house. The night can do its quiet work without you. So you listen a little longer. You listen to the small, bright touches of rain at the window, and to the softer wash above, and to the hidden trickle finding its path away. You listen from inside the warm cloth hush of the fort, where the lamp glows low, and the comforter beneath you stays soft and level. You listen to the dark, wet world outside, making its mild, steady music, and to the dry, still world inside, holding you in place while it does. The rain keeps touching the glass. The roof keeps receiving it. The gutter keeps carrying it on. And here, within the quilted dimness, the air stays warm. The pillows stay gathered close, and the whole small shelter seems to breathe in time with that patient sound from the window, as if the rainy night has settled all around the room and is resting there too, quietly, steadily, just beyond the cloth. Chapter 4. Shadows on the quilt walls. Just beyond the cloth, the rain goes on in its patient way. And inside the fort, the light remains low and steady, turning the hanging quilts into something softer than blankets, softer even than walls. The glow does not reach far. It rests close by, pooled in the folds of fabric, caught along stitched lines and worn seams, so that every surface seems gently made of shadow and gold together. If you look up, the ceiling of the fort is no longer only a quilt draped from one chair to another. In this light, it becomes a low, quiet landscape. A seam runs across it like a small path. A fold gathers into a rounded hill. The places where the cloth dips between its supports hold a duskier shade, and the places nearest the lamp keep a warm, honey-colored brightness. Nothing is sharp. Even the edges blur a little, as though the light is sleepy too. The patterns on the quilt come and go, depending on how the fabric hangs. A faded stripe appears, then disappears into shadow. A flower shape, washed pale with years and many washings, seems to bloom for a moment, and then soften back into the cloth. A square of blue gone gray catches the glow and looks almost silver at its edge. These are familiar things, ordinary things, but in the fort, they ask for nothing more than a quiet glance. They do not need to be named for long. It is enough to notice them and let them drift. The lamp, tipped low and partly hidden, sends a small beam upward through the side of the blanket. Because of that, the light moves in a very gentle way. If the fabric settles the slightest bit, the shadows shift. If the air inside the fort warms and lifts, a hanging corner stirs, almost too little to see, and the darker shapes slide slowly across the quilt wall. They do not startle. They pass with the same ease as rain moving down glass. A crease near your shoulder deepens, then loosens. The edge of a pillow makes a soft wedge of shade. The chair leg outside the blanket presses a firmer line through the cloth, and for a while, that line stands there, like the trunk of a tree in a very small and quiet forest. Then your eyes soften, and it is only a darker strip again, harmless and still. This is one of the simple pleasures of a fort at night. The way plain things transform without ever becoming strange. A blanket remains a blanket. A chair remains a chair. The lamp remains a lamp turned low. And yet, under the hanging quilts, with rain at the window and the room dim beyond the cloth, everything is touched by a little wonder so gentle it barely rises above comfort. It is the kind of wonder that does not wake the mind. It only gives it somewhere soft to rest. You can follow the stitching if you like. One line crosses another. Small, hand-sewn places pucker the fabric where it has been mended or reinforced. The thread catches light differently from the cotton around it, making tiny ridges, tiny borders. Here the quilt is smooth with age. There it bunches slightly where two pieces meet. The eye can travel along these narrow paths without effort, moving from one square to the next, from one faded pattern to another, with no need to arrive anywhere. And the longer you look, the more the quilt walls seem to hold a kind of hush of their own. Sound enters softened. Light settles and stays. Shadows spread out as though they have all night to do so. Even the colors become quieter under the warm glow. Reds turn brick soft and sleepy. Blues become dusk blue, almost gray. Cream and white gather the lamplight and return it in the gentlest way, as if the cloth itself is glowing from within. There is a familiar feeling here, though it does not need to become a memory with names and places. It is simply the feeling of being small in a protected space, of being close to fabric and warmth and low light, absorbed by something simple enough to quiet every busy thought. The quilt wall in front of you is interesting in the same calm way that rain is interesting, or the movement of leaves seen from a window, or the pattern in wood grain, or the rise and fall of a curtain in a breeze. Your attention can rest on it lightly. It can drift away and return. Nothing is lost. The shadows continue their slow work. Near the ceiling, a fold of blanket makes a long crescent of dimness. Along one side, where the quilt hangs thicker, the light cannot pass through as easily, and a deeper amber brown gathers there. Lower down, the fabric thins, and the glow comes through more clearly, revealing tiny flecks in the weave, little softened irregularities that would go unnoticed in daylight. Here, in the fort, they become part of the quiet texture of the night. Sometimes your own outline joins the scene without effort. A hand resting nearby creates a small shape against the blanket if it lifts even slightly. The curve of a knee beneath the covers changes the angle of a shadow on the wall. A shift of breath alters the drape of the quilt overhead by almost nothing, but enough that the light answers with a faint rearranging. The fort notices every small motion and turns it gentle. Outside, the rain keeps tapping and whispering at the window, but now it feels even farther away because your attention has come close to the quilt itself, to this little world of seams and folds and warm, dim color. The room beyond the fort has grown less important. The dresser, the chair, the dark corners of the bedroom all recede. Here, there is only the low ceiling, the pillow wall, the softened floor beneath you, and these slow-moving shadows that ask nothing except a quiet gaze. And after a while, even looking becomes less active. The eyes rest, half-focused. The patterns blur into one another. The flower shape is only a pale roundness now. The stripe is only a muted band. The seam is only a path of slightly deeper gold. Shadow and cloth, cloth and light. All of it mingles into a single calm surface that rises above you and curves around you, making the fort feel less built than gathered, less arranged than naturally formed. So the quilts hang in their patient folds. The light glows through them. The shadows drift and settle and drift again. And inside this small shelter, with rain beyond the window and warmth held under the blankets, it is easy to remain here a little longer, watching the soft shapes move across the quilt walls, until even that small watching begins to feel like resting. Chapter 5. The house settles beyond the fort, and as the watching softens, other things begin to be noticed too. Not near things, not the close folds of quilt and pillow and lamplight, but the farther sounds that live beyond the fort. They do not arrive all at once. They seem to come forward only because everything here inside has grown so still. Beyond the hanging blankets, the room remains dim and quiet. Beyond the room, the house keeps its own gentle night. It does not ask for attention. It simply goes on being a house in the rain, settling little by little into darkness, into rest. From somewhere under the floor, or perhaps through the wall, there is the faintest low hum. A refrigerator in the kitchen, maybe, or some small hidden appliance keeping to its work. The sound is so steady, it is almost not a sound at all. More like a soft line drawn underneath the silence. It does not disturb the fort. If anything, it makes the hush feel deeper, because the hush has something warm and ordinary to rest beside. A little later, there is a tiny shift in the house itself. A floorboard gives a quiet, brief creak far down the hall. The sort of sound wood makes when it cools, when it eases into the night. It is over almost before it is heard. Then stillness folds back around it, smooth and easy. Inside the fort, the quilts do not move much. Only now and then, a hanging edge seems to relax by the smallest amount, settling into its own weight. The low light remains honey-soft, dimmed by fabric. The pillows along the sides keep their rounded shape. The comforter underneath stays gently flattened and warm. Everything close at hand is exactly as it was. And because of that, every distant sound feels even farther away, filtered through cloth and room and hallway, softened by walls, softened by night. Somewhere in the house, water passes through a pipe with a muted, rounded murmur. Not loud, not sudden, just a brief hush inside the walls, as if the house itself has taken a small sip and then gone quiet again. The sound fades so naturally into the rain that it is hard to tell where one ends and the other begins. This is one of the comforting things about being tucked into a small place while the rest of the home settles around you. You do not need to see any of it. You do not need to follow any sound to its source. It is enough to know that beyond the quilted ceiling and beyond the bedroom door, familiar things remain where they belong. The hallway is still the hallway. The stairs are still the stairs. The kitchen waits in the dark with its counters and cupboards. The bathroom tiles hold their coolness. The rooms farther off are quiet behind their doors. All of it stays in place, making the same small nighttime sounds houses have always made when rain is at the window and people have grown still. Now and then, there is the faintest touch of movement from far away, softened almost beyond hearing. a cupboard being closed gently, a last careful footstep, the brushed rustle of someone settling bedding in another room. These sounds do not come as interruptions. They come as reassurance. They say the house is inhabited by calm. They say the night is ordinary. They say everything is being put away, dimmed, lowered, and left to rest. Then even those sounds thin out. The rain remains. The hum remains. The fort remains close and warm around you. A small click reaches the room from somewhere distant. Perhaps the turning off of a lamp. Perhaps the settling of heat in a pipe. Perhaps something too ordinary to name. It lands softly in the dark and disappears. Nothing follows it. The silence afterward is not empty. It is full of held things. Fabric, warmth, rain, the patient shape of the room, the quiet confidence of the house standing all around. The house has its own nighttime rhythm, and from inside the fort, it can be felt without needing to be understood. A board settles, a pipe cools, an appliance hums on. Rain taps the window and trails through the gutter. Then all of it blends together into one wide, familiar background. Like hearing sleep approach from many gentle directions at once, the blankets overhead make every distant noise rounder. The quilts catch the sharper edges and leave only the softened part. So the house never seems large or echoing from here. It seems gathered. It seems close in the way a hand over a lamp makes the light gentler. The fort does that to sound. It cups the night. It turns the whole house into something hushed and kind. If another floorboard murmurs somewhere beyond the bedroom, it only reminds you how well hidden you are beneath these draped quilts. If a pipe gives one last quiet note inside the wall, it only reminds you that the walls are there. The rooms are there. The roof is there, holding out the rain. If the low hum in the distance continues without change, it becomes a steady companion to the weather, a domestic little current running through the dark. And all the while, this small space keeps its own calm. The pillow wall near your shoulder stays soft and full. The blanket under your hand keeps a little pocket of warmth. The lamplight remains low enough that the quilted ceiling glows instead of shines. The air inside the fort is slightly warmer than the air in the room beyond. It has the tucked-in feeling of breath and fabric and held heat. Outside the fort, the house grows quieter still. The hallway settles first, losing even the hint of movement. Then the farther rooms seem to sink into the same deep hush. The sounds become fewer, wider apart. A hum, rain, a nearly invisible creak. Then only rain again, and the low, steady sense of the house resting around the room like a larger shelter around the smaller one. It is pleasant to notice how many layers of safety there are. The fort inside the bedroom inside the house under the rainy night. each one holding the next, each one making a boundary between here and elsewhere, fabric and walls and roof and dark sky, all arranged in quiet layers, all doing their simple work. So you stay where you are, beneath the hanging quilts, while the house beyond them settles by degrees into its familiar sleep. A distant hum, a softened pipe, a board easing into place, rain at the window. Nothing urgent, nothing unknown, only the ordinary language of home, spoken more and more quietly, until it seems the whole house is resting too, and your small glowing fort is resting within it, safe in the middle of that gentle, watchful hush. Chapter 6. Breath, blanket, warmth. Inside that hush, there is less and less to notice beyond the fort, and more to feel within it. The quilts hold the warmth that has been gathering all evening. It is a quiet warmth, not heavy, not close, just enough to soften the air around your face and hands. Beneath you, the folded comforter has settled into a gentle shape that remembers your weight. A pillow supports one shoulder. Another makes a soft edge near your arm. The floor of the fort is no longer something arranged beneath you. It has become simply where you are held. The lamp, tucked low and turned away, still gives its small amber glow through the fabric. But even that begins to matter less now. The light is there, mild and steady, making the quilt walls dimly golden, making the stitched seams and faded patches blur into one another. You do not need to look closely anymore. It is enough to know the glow remains, quiet and faithful, somewhere near the edge of your resting, and nearer than the light, nearer than the rain. There is your breathing. It comes and goes so softly that for a moment it is almost part of the fort itself, a slow breath in, warming the space just in front of your lips. A slow breath out, easing back into the sheltered air. Nothing to change, nothing to improve. Just the small, steady motion that has been with you all along. Now easier to hear, because everything else has grown so gentle. Breathing in, breathing out. The blanket over you keeps a little pocket of warmth close to your body. Along your legs, there is a pleasant heaviness, the kind that asks nothing but stillness. Around your middle, the quilt lies smooth and familiar, with one slightly thicker seam where pieces of fabric meet. Near your hand, the blanket edge is soft from years of washing, its fibers loosened and kind. If your fingers move at all, they do not need to move far. Just enough to feel cloth, warmth, softness, rest, breathing in, breathing out. The rain is still there at the window, but now it seems farther away, as if the sound has wrapped itself in the same blankets that wrap around you. It reaches the fort as a hush more than a pattern, a tender brushing at the edges of the room, a steady silver murmur beyond the quilts. You can listen if you want to, and if you do not, it continues anyway, keeping its own rhythm in the dark. Your body listens in a quieter way, shoulders loosening a little more into the padding beneath them, jaw easing, forehead smoothing, hands growing still. Even the places that were faintly alert a little while ago, still noticing the room, still aware of the rain, still lightly awake, begin to soften their hold. The fort asks for nothing now, except that you let it support you. The pillow wall stays where it is. The chairs beneath the quilts remain steady. The lamp glows on. The room beyond the fabric keeps its distance. Everything that needs to be done has already been done. So the small work of the moment is only this: to breathe, to feel the blanket, to rest. Breathing in, the air feels slightly cooler at the tip of your nose. Breathing out, it turns warm again. Breathing in, your ribs rise just enough. Breathing out, they settle back down. Breathing in, the quilt lifts almost too little to see. Breathing out, it falls softly into place. The rhythm is quiet, patient, ordinary. It does not ask for your attention in any strict way. It only offers it. A simple place for the mind to rest when it no longer wants to wander very far. The fort seems smaller now in the most comforting way. Not cramped, not crowded, only close. The hanging quilts curve overhead in low, sheltering folds. The pillows keep their gentle borders. The air under the blankets is warmer than the air outside them. Your own breathing fills the little space, then fades into it again. It is easy to imagine that this small, hidden room has been made exactly for this hour of the night. Exactly for this drifting quiet. You can feel where your body meets softness. The back of your head against the pillow. The side of your arm against the blanket. The weight of your knees sinking down. The welcome support beneath your shoulders. The warmth gathered at your feet. Each place has become easier to trust. There is no need to hold yourself up. No need to listen for anything in particular. The house has already settled. The rain has already found its rhythm. The light has already softened. And here, inside the fort, your body can follow. A little deeper into the pillow. A little heavier into the comforter, a little quieter in the chest, a little slower in the breath, breathing in, breathing out. Sometimes the quilt shifts by the smallest amount as the air moves under it, and that tiny motion is soothing too. A barely there rise, a gentle settling. Fabric against fabric. Warmth held between layers. The fort does not feel built now so much as gathered around you. Chairbacks hidden under draped blankets. Seams and folds hanging still. A small roof of cloth above, keeping the light low and the world soft. The sounds beyond it continue to dim. Perhaps the faintest hum still lingers somewhere far off in the house. Perhaps a pipe cools quietly in the wall. Perhaps rain traces one more soft path down the window. But none of these ask to be followed. They pass like distant, familiar thoughts, and the fort remains the nearest thing. Blanket, pillow, breath, warmth. Blanket, pillow, breath, warmth. The words themselves begin to feel soft-edged, like objects seen in low light. Not ideas to think about, more like simple corners of comfort, each one close at hand. Blanket over you, pillow beneath you, breath moving gently, warmth staying near. If a thought comes, it can rest here too, without needing to go any farther. In the dim amber hush, the quilt walls keep their watchful stillness. Their faded patterns are almost gone now, melted into shadow and glow. The blue-gray square, the old flowered patch, the thin stripe along one seam, all of them remain, but only faintly, as if they too are growing sleepy. The fort is becoming less a place to look at, and more a place to be inside. And being inside it is easy. You breathe in, you breathe out. The blanket holds, the pillow supports, the warmth stays. Outside, rain. Inside, breath. Outside, darkness against the window. Inside, a small golden dimness through cloth. Outside, the night continuing in its own quiet way. Inside, your body settling more completely each moment it is left undisturbed. So, you let the next breath come as it comes. You let the next breath go. You feel the softness under your shoulder, the smooth, worn blanket near your hand, the gentle weight over your legs. You feel the hidden little room around you, close and calm. You feel how nothing is required now, except this slow sinking into comfort, this easy drifting downward through warmth and hush, while the rain goes on softly beyond the quilts, and your breathing goes on softly within them, and the fort keeps holding both the glow and the quiet, both the stillness and the slow, steady rise and fall. Chapter 7. Rain. Keeping watch. The rain is still there. It has not hurried anywhere. It has not thinned away. It stays at the window with the same patient touch, the same soft tapping and silver hush, as if it has all night to keep watch over the dark glass, the roof, the gutter, the quiet room, and this smaller room inside it, inside the fort. Everything feels even more gathered now. The quilts hang in gentle folds from the chairs. The pillow wall stays rounded and soft. The comforter beneath you keeps the shape of your resting body. A shallow, warm place made simply by staying still long enough. The little lamp, turned low and away, glows through fabric and seam, through faded stripe and flower shape, through the blue-gray square washed pale with age. Its light is no longer something to look at closely. It is only a dim warmth in the cloth, a small golden remembering that the fort is here around you, and you are here within it, breathing in, breathing out. The sound of the rain and the sound of your breathing begin to seem less separate now. One is outside the quilt walls, one is inside them, but they move together in an easy way, both steady, both untroubled, both asking nothing. The rain slips along the night. Your breath slips along the quiet. Between them, the fort rests like a little boat of blankets floating on still water, not traveling anywhere, only held. The air inside is warmer than the room beyond. It holds the faint, clean scent of cotton and old fabric, and the softened trace of the house itself. There is the smell of quilts folded and unfolded many times, of pillowcases warmed by use, of a bedroom after evening has settled all the daytime motion down. The warmth stays low and close. It gathers beneath the hanging cloth and around your shoulders and knees. It stays with you easily. Outside the fort, the bedroom has gone very far away, though it is only a few feet in every direction. The bed is there in the dimness. The dresser is there. The chair beneath one side of the quilt is there, doing its simple work of holding up the roof of this small, hidden place. But none of it asks for attention now. It all belongs to the larger quiet. It can remain where it is, while you remain where you are. Breathing in, breathing out. The rain taps lightly at the window, then smooths into a hush. A few drops gather and travel together. A faint run of water passes through the gutter. Then again, the softer pattern returns, small and even, as though the night is laying one cool hand after another against the outside of the house. Nothing urgent, nothing sharp, just the ongoing sound of weather being weather, while indoors the blankets keep their warmth and the pillows keep their shape, and the lamp keeps its low amber glow. You do not need to follow every sound now. You can let them blur a little at the edges. The rain can be rain without being counted. The hum somewhere deeper in the house can be only a distant thread, too soft to separate from the rest. Even the fabric above you, dipping slightly between chair backs, can be simply fabric, simply shelter, simply the ceiling of this hidden place. Your body knows what to do with softness. It knows how to sink a little more when the floor beneath is padded and kind. It knows how to let the jaw loosen, how to let the tongue rest, how to let the forehead smooth itself without effort. It knows how to be warmed by layers. It knows how to accept the gentle weight over your legs, the tucked blanket near your side, the pillow supporting the side of your head. It knows this old language of being held. And because the body knows, the mind can grow quieter. Thoughts pass through slowly now, if they come at all. They no longer need to finish themselves. They can drift by like shadows on the quilt wall, soft-edged and brief, fading before they become anything solid. A shape of light, a remembered feeling of being small and tucked away. The sense of rain beyond a window, the sense of lamplight through cloth. Then even these become simpler. Warmth, hush, breath, rain, breathing in, breathing out. The fort seems almost to breathe with you. The quilt above rises only in appearance, in the way the light shifts gently through it, in the way your own calm makes everything nearby seem calm as well. The pillow wall beside you keeps its rounded stillness. The blanket edge near your hand stays smooth and familiar, its fibers softened by washing and time. If your fingers were to move, they would find that same worn texture, that same reassuring plainness. But there is no need to move. It is enough to know it is there. Rain at the window, warmth under the quilts, dim light in the fabric, breath in the quiet. Again, rain at the window, warmth under the quilts, dim light in the fabric, breath in the quiet. The house beyond has settled so deeply now that even its faint sounds feel asleep. If a board eases somewhere far away, it does so gently. If the pipes hold a little coolness in the walls, they do so quietly. If the kitchen hum continues in the distance, it is only part of the night's low floor of sound, steady and familiar, never rising. Everything beyond the fort keeps its place. Everything near you keeps its place. The whole house seems to understand that this is an hour for soft edges. The rain keeps watch outside. The quilts keep watch above. The pillows keep watch around you. And your own breathing keeps its small watch within. One slow breath, and then another. One easy rise, and one easy fall. Sometimes the light behind your closed or half-closed eyes seems golden. Sometimes it seems gray-blue, like that faded square in the quilt when the rain-colored dark touches it. Sometimes there is almost no color at all, only a gentle dimness, soft and even. It does not matter. The fort remains the same. The warmth remains the same. The rain remains the same. Nothing needs to change. Nothing needs to be decided. Nothing needs to be remembered for later. There is only this little sheltered room made of chairs and quilts and pillows, holding its shape in the middle of the bedroom. There is only the weather outside, kind in its steadiness. There is only the comforter beneath you, the blanket over you, the lamp breathing low gold into the cloth. There is only this feeling of being enclosed without being confined, hidden without being alone, small in the safest way, breathing in, breathing out. The rain goes on, the warmth goes on, the quiet goes on, and the fort, with its low ceiling and soft walls and dim glow, keeps floating there in the darkened room while you rest inside it, listening less and less, sinking a little more, held by the quilts, held by the hush, held by the steady rain keeping watch just beyond the window. Chapter 8. Still inside the quiet glow. The rain is still there. It has not hurried anywhere. It has not thinned into silence or gathered into anything sharp. It simply goes on in the same patient way. A soft brushing at the window, a faint silver threading through the dark outside. A quiet sound so steady it begins to feel less like weather and more like part of the room itself. From inside the fort, it reaches you only after passing through glass and air and hanging quilts, gentled by each layer, until it becomes a hush that rests around everything. Inside, the glow has grown dimmer, or perhaps your eyes have grown softer. The little lamp, turned low and hidden from direct sight, still gives the fabric its warm, breathing color. Gold has faded into honey into something even quieter, a color that hardly asks to be seen. The quilts above you hold it gently. Their folds keep a little light in the seams, in the stitched lines, in the worn places where the cloth has thinned with years of washing and use. The pale blue-gray square is only barely there now. The faded stripes and flower shapes have blurred into tender suggestions. Nothing needs to come into focus. The fort remains exactly as it has been made. Chairs stand underneath the draped quilts, doing their quiet work without being noticed. Pillows stay gathered in their low wall. The comforter beneath you keeps its softened shape, slightly hollowed where your body rests. The blanket over you holds a familiar warmth, not too heavy, not too light, just enough to keep the small space feeling complete. Everything needed is already here. The air beneath the quilts is warmer than the room beyond. It has been warmed slowly, little by little, by breath and stillness and time. It touches your face differently from the cooler air beyond the fort. And that difference is small, but easy to feel. A pocket of warmth, a pocket of dimness, a small held place in the middle of the rainy night. Breathing in, breathing out. The blanket rises almost too slightly to notice, then settles again. Breathing in, breathing out. Nothing else is asked of you. The body already knows how to keep going in this quiet way. The rain knows how to keep going too. The house beyond the bedroom has gone nearly all the way still. If some far appliance hums, it is so low and familiar that it blends with the night. If a board settles somewhere in the walls, it does so gently, as though even the house is easing deeper into rest. These sounds no longer arrive as separate things. They drift together. Rain, breath, warmth, cloth, hush. The fort keeps them all soft. The quilt wall nearest your shoulder hangs in a curved line, making a little inward tent of fabric and shadow. The edge of one seam can still be felt if you move your hand just slightly, though there is no need to move much now. The stitching is raised in a tiny path beneath your fingertips. A mended place, smooth from wear. A fold where the cloth doubles over itself. Familiar textures, quiet textures. They do not wake the mind. They give it something small enough to rest beside. The pillow near your arm has become warm too. It gives way without collapsing. A gentle boundary. A soft reminder of where you are. Here, inside the quilt walls, under the lowered ceiling, on the padded floor of blankets and comforter. In the same room where the bed waits nearby, where the dresser stands in shadow, where the rain touches the window and slides on through the night. Nothing has changed. Nothing needs to. The light grows less important. The shapes grow less important. Even the thought of the room beyond the fort begins to blur at the edges. The bed is there, but only as a softness somewhere outside the quilts. The dresser is there, but only as a dark, still shape. The hallway, the stairs, the kitchen, the sleeping rooms farther on, all of them remain in place, quiet and settled, but far enough away now that they feel folded into the night, tucked into it just as you are tucked into the fort. Closer than all of that is the fabric above you. Closer than that is the blanket over you. Closer still is breath. Breathing in, breathing out. A little warmth around your chest. A little warmth around your hands. A little warmth gathered at your knees and feet, where the blanket keeps it in. The rain goes on, keeping its own slow measure. Sometimes it seems to brush lightly at the glass. Sometimes it becomes a broader whisper along the roofline. Sometimes there is the faintest suggestion of water finding the gutter and slipping along it in the dark. But even these small changes do not ask to be followed. They pass like clouds behind closed eyes. They come. They soften. They go on. And the fort goes on too. It keeps its shape in the dim bedroom. It keeps its low ceiling and quilted walls. It keeps the hidden lamp and the small amber glow. It keeps the pillow wall, the comforter floor, the old blanket edge, the worn seams, the softened cotton scent that lingers close in the warmed air. It keeps your place for you without effort, held by the blanket, held by the quilts, held by the quiet glow. The body can sink a little more if it wants to. The shoulders can rest more heavily. The forehead can stay smooth. The jaw can remain loose. Hands can be still. Toes can be still. Even thoughts can be still, or nearly still. And when one drifts by, it can drift by as lightly as the rain itself, without needing to be kept. There is only this small shelter, this warm dimness, this hush under cloth, this rain beyond the window, this easy rise, this easy fall, breathing in, breathing out. The lamp glows on in its hidden place, though it hardly seems like a lamp now. more like a memory of light resting in fabric, more like a quiet color held in the quilts, enough to keep the darkness gentle, enough to leave the fort in a soft outline of warmth, enough and no more. Outside, the rainy night continues to keep watch in its patient way. Inside, the blankets continue to hold their warmth. The pillows continue to make their soft wall. The quilts continue to hang from the chairs in calm folds, making this little room within the room, this small and steady refuge. And you remain there, with nothing to finish, nothing to solve, nothing to carry. Only the rain, only the warmth, only the dim glow through cloth, only the soft weight of the blanket, only the hush held under the quilts, breathing in, breathing out. The night stays gentle. The fort stays warm. The rain keeps moving quietly at the window, and the small glow, nearly forgotten now, stays resting in the fabric, while the quilts hang low and still around you, and the warmth stays gathered, and the hush stays gathered, and the rain goes on and on.